Hello, this is Dread. Of late, I've been playing Slormancer. It's an indie ARPG that caught my eyes a few years ago. It is primarily developed by like two people. It started as a very small project, but over the past 2 years, it has blossomed into an obsessive game that can keep me from working for well over a week every time I start it up again. Before we continue with this video, I want you to pause and tell me what endgame system in an ARPG you've enjoyed the most and why. It is so that I can get a glimpse into what everyone else wants out of their experience playing these kinds of games. Now, as you may well know, if you've been watching me for a while, I am an absolute ARPG junkie. It's in my veins. In this game, it's straight crack right off the toilet in the middle of a Blizzard Activision building. It is amazing. So when I heard that there was going to be another update, I was stoked and ready to fuel my obsession for another weekend. But then I remembered my last time playing Slormancer. It was kind of a negative thought, and I couldn't figure it out. But then I started playing it again, and I remembered. Forges took absolutely forever to finish. If you don't know, the Forge is the third endgame mode introduced into Slormancer, and its arrival was of great relief to the community. It is essentially an arena-like mode, or like Crucible if you're familiar with Grim Dawn, which I know a large majority of my audience is, considering they never stop badgering me to play it more. Enemies come in waves through doors, and as you kill each wave, it'll let you choose between 3 options, each of them having a positive effect on your war chest, where all your loot goes, and a negative effect on you of varying degrees depending on rarity. As you kill enemies, they add base rewards to the chest, and the modifiers that come from killing waves will modify them, increasing them significantly. The little minigame is trying to balance negative modifiers that your build can handle while also trying to maximize your desired reward from your war chest. You also have things like obelisks, which give you rewards per wave you've defended, changing the gameplay to kind of like a tower defense. Not only do you have to care about yourself, but you also have to keep the obelisk alive so you can maximize rewards. Speaking about maximizing your rewards, though, when you go into a forge, it's like a small little roguelike experience every single time. You have a lot of different modifiers that interweave with each other. There's one that lets you convert all your Reaper Smiths into Goldust, which can give you a much larger payout of gold in the end by sacrificing your Reaper Smith progress. You can also have effects that last the whole rest of the run, like enemies having extra projectiles, different base damage types, and loads of detrimental effects that you can prepare for ahead of time in combat with proper gearing, or of course making sure you don't take too many negative effects at once. I could just keep going, but I hope you get my point of how much I enjoy this mode. Now, there is a total of 100 waves, and one of the only flaws with this system is how long it took to complete before this patch. Even if you were decimating waves as soon as they spawned in by using some kind of cheese build or mechanic, you could only progress the waves as fast as the game would let you spawn them in. This meant that a complete forge run with 100 waves usually took about 40 minutes to an hour, even longer if you accidentally chose the curse that increases enemy health equal to your war chest's current Goldust quantity, which can be pretty crazy. That was the main piece of feedback that was given to the Slormancer devs by the community, and through a few different solutions provided by them, they finally found a way to satisfy us all. So to speed up the Forge while also retaining the spirit of the game mode and how hard it is, now when you start a new Forge run, you will have the option to open more gates, up to 6 gates opened from the normal 2, with a little bit more currency. Which, if you're good at math, means that waves come out 3 times as fast on average, allowing us to finish a forge in a much more manageable time of 20 to 30 minutes instead of just the normal 40 to 50. You can also have the option to start a new wave, even if the prior wave is still in progress, as long as there is no more than 300 enemies on the screen, and there couldn't be 300 or more enemies on the screen with the next wave, of course, for performance reasons. This means not only you can triple your forge wave spawn time, you can also run a bunch of waves at once, leading to a mode that was kind of sleepy after you were powerful enough to a crazy chaotic mess that I've been falling in love with recently. The only problem with this is the fact that if you spawn too many enemies and they're all too tanky, it will lead to the game slowing down considerably. This is a funny balancing effect on the game that not only do you need to make sure you can survive waves of enemies at once, but you also need to kill them fast enough so you prevent your game from becoming a slideshow. This is probably not intentional at all and will be fixed one day in the future, but it's a two-person dev team, so I give them some slack right now. Now that we have the context for this video, let's talk about the title of it. I think Slormancer's Great Forge is one of the best endgame systems that have ever been introduced into an ARPG. The amount of choice, options, strategy, and player interaction that it attempts to achieve is astounding. One of my favorite ARPGs, Last Epoch, has a slightly similar system with the Arena of Champions, but if you've ever played it, you'd know that it's a very watered down version in comparison. I didn't really realize I was fiending for an endgame mode so complex until I touched Slormancer recently. The only game that can even compete on the same level as Slormancer on this front is, of course, Path of Exile, which I also love, its endgame loop. But PoE is a game that has been developed for years, while Slormancer is kind of small in comparison. This is by no means a demerit to Path of Exile. Its depth comes from how much of each of its endgame mechanics weave together and how they function with each other. This is much more of a praise towards Slormancer and its dev team for being able to make such an amazing game with so little at hand. If you compare it to when I was playing Diablo 4, it's an insane juxtaposition to see a game get so much effort put into it, but for it to fall short to two random French dudes who just wanted to make a game. Now, this is a little unfair, as Diablo 4's whole premise is to be easy to comprehend and not so complicated so a casual person with not so many hours as us addicts could play and have fun with. But it's still amazing that my playthroughs of both these games have been so close that I can see the stark contrast of someone who is making a game for passion and one that is making it to seek the lowest common denominator. This brings me to the comparison earlier that I had. I play Last Epoch a lot, and I'll be honest, the Great Forge makes Ellie's endgame kinda look like a joke. I love the game, but I also love it enough to point out its weak points, and endgame is certainly one of them. And of course, same thing with Diablo 4 here, obviously. And to be honest, almost every game in the genre can look at this small little game from France and learn a thing or two about how to make your players keep playing long after they bought it or started a new character, instead of just adding benign grinds that make you senseless. With all that being said, if you've gotten this far, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I make a lot of videos like this, including talking about builds I end up making while playing these games. This has been Dread, off to go play some more.